I'm reminded of something that a good friend of mine told me quite recently when I was explaining to him how difficult working on this series has been. And I wondered, is this what I'm supposed to be doing as an artist? Does this matter? And he told me, you know, sometimes when we encounter the darkest parts of life, the darkest parts of society, sometimes the only things that we can do, the only thing that we can do is bear witness. And I believe that that is what this exhibition in part seeks to do. It's just bearing witness to the past and to these contemporary ills that still plague our community, in hopes that by simply telling the story, some form of good may come out of it. My exhibition, 10 Little Nigger Girls, is about a book / nursery rhyme that was published in 1907 by British author Nora Case. She did both the illustrations and the nursery rhyme. And there are a number of other variations of this book that she did, 10 Little Nigger Boys. Later on, there's another variation that comes out called The Strange Tale of 10 Little Niggers, and so on and so forth. It's a story that's retold by different illustrators and authors in different ways, even up to Agatha Christie, who takes the title 10 Little Niggers for a book that she later renames And Then There Were None, where a group of people who are invited to a mansion are eliminated one by one, but only after seeing the book 10 Little Niggers as a forecast of their death. So this is, in pop culture and in other forms of our culture, both American and just Western cultures in general, this text from 1907 is very much alive. That is really the heart of the exhibit, a conversation for Nora Case about a cast of 10 girls who, that is, eliminated or reduced one by one, sometimes in these horrific ways. One is burnt alive. She's immolated after catching fire while she's cooking. And another one is eaten by a bear. And so there are these little dangers that the girls stumble upon. And so it's in that spirit that the exhibition that I'm creating, 10 Little Nigger Girls, with the line going through the word nigger, exists. It's a retelling of the story, and a discussion of the sentiments behind the story and the word nigger, and really begging the question whether or not these sentiments still exist, whether or not while the word nigger has been erased from our public conscious, is it possible that the sentiments behind the word still exist or still persist? For me, in the original book, the thing that really sparked this for me was seeing that little black girl being burned alive. The idea that even in the form of entertainment or a nursery rhyme for public consumption, for a consumption by other little children, that the idea that any child of any race can be set on fire and killed off, and that is okay. I think that was the driving point for me to work on this series. My hope is that you would put aside what you do know, and even the offenses that this brings you, to actually learn a little bit more about this really interesting portion of history, but also to think about my works as larger conversation pieces about the invisibility of black children here in the U.S. And the ills that they face, usually without the advantage of having people really care about them. The Costin Cultural Exhibit, for which this particular presentation is being made, provides context to this larger exhibition, 10 Little Nigger Girls. And what you will see is a series of postcards and other forms of memorabilia, some ranging from as early as the mid-1800s You see little children, little black children, pickaninnies, in these various states of buffoonery, eating watermelon, running around, behaving in strange ways, or you'll see them in the form of advertisements. And one example is a pickaninny freeze. What is the pickaninny type? The pickaninny type, along with other kinds of types such as the buck, Sambo, the Jezebel, the wench, the mammy, are characters that were created really as a form of entertainment, but also as a form of a kind of social subjugation. The idea of categorizing black people as one type of or one set of things. So the pickaninny type falls in line with these stereotypes that existed. And the pickaninny, well, what is it? It's a little black kid, often unkempt, kind of dirty, running around, unsupervised, and really represents a kind of tidal wave of buffoonery that whites saw blacks to be, in a way. And while they're little children, they're really objectified in a way because they become the subjects of entertainment and the subjects of scrutiny in the way white children do not. Pickaninnies represent all of the reasons why adult blacks should never be allowed to be freed from slavery, or later on should never be allowed, to be managers or never be allowed to assume any real responsibilities. Because if these little creatures grow up into these larger creatures, well, then we have the evidence. And so pickaninnies really, pickaninnies represent the fruit of everything that white folks at the time believe black adults to be. So pickaninnies can never really amount to anything good. While on one level, they represent all of these things these objects that can be used in the context of advertisements and for entertainment purposes. At some point in time in these projections of this type, the pickaninny is reduced to an object that can be harmed or is reduced to a form that can be killed. And that can be seen as a form of entertainment. So for example, with Little African, a product that was created, a type of licorice, Little African uses the pickaninny type with an alligator kind of following this baby that's the pickaninny. And the idea is, look, this alligator really wants this really dainty morsel, and you will too. The alligator and the pickaninny there are used to have this conversation about, this little black thing is gonna be good to eat. That's one of the things we see with pickaninnies often. They become the subjects, they become the prey for large, terrifying creatures. That's their punishment for their foolishness. That's their punishment for being born into this shell of foolishness that they are. But the same advertisement shows up with a company called Stain and Glow, where the pickaninny represents a stain on a carpet or on a shirt, and there's a big alligator coming to eat the pickaninny. So in this case, if you buy this product, we can get rid of the pickaninny. It's not something that you want to consume, it's something you want to eradicate. In either way, either case of these two advertisements, the pickaninny is something that's going to be eliminated either as a morsel to be consumed or as something to be eradicated. It's really within the context of Florida and some of the southern states that we have the tradition of postcards, a culture of postcards and conversation about little black children as gator bait. And as unsettling as it is, that is a reality to deal with, that there are these things that exist, these artifacts that exist of little black boys trying to escape being killed by large gators, or just sitting unassumingly and having gators approach them, or little black babies that are pictured and you wouldn't know that they were supposed to be gator bait unless you saw the little marquee underneath the image that says, gator bait or alligator bait. These are postcards, things that for public consumption, things that were purchased and then kept, and people wrote on them and sent them out to loved ones. And also, one of the things that exists outside of just the postcards, you also have these little figurines, sculptures of pickaninnies, some that are really just adorable, like this little one here of sitting in the middle of a watermelon, which seems fairly innocuous, just kind of underscoring the stereotype of black people and watermelon, but you know, it's a cute little kid sitting on, it's most likely a paperweight, all the way to this ashtray, you know, of a black boy who is, you know, dangerously close to an alligator, or these other two objects showing a black boy wrestling an alligator who's about to, you know, close shut on his face, or, you know, a pen here, a pen holder, where the pen is the little black boy and the holder is the alligator. And so it's important to understand that somehow within the fabric of this culture, there are these things that existed. And so the question is, you know, to what degree do these cultures, even in secret, still persist? The heart of this exhibit really is about black children. The problem that I, as the artist, saw with our history and also with now is that often our children, black children, are not regarded in the same way that other children are in this nation. And that's part of the reason why the exhibit's been done. That's part of the reason why Bill has been kind enough to lend this wonderful exhibition of these real artifacts of his that document this really dark part of our history. But how exciting is it that we can now, even now, we can look back to the past in this very specific, very linear kind of way and look at this one book and all of the things that it represents and have a conversation about all of these other things now that are happening today, and maybe not necessarily arrive at a solution, but just have the conversation, because sometimes resolution comes from the conversation. That's one of the goals, is for you to walk away from here beyond the shock of my use of the word nigger, you know, beyond the shock of the history of this. My hope is that you will allow yourself permission to fall into this world, even for a little bit of time, and take these images to heart, as I have in creating them. So I'm so thankful that you've come through. Please enjoy the rest of the exhibit.